it's June here, recording the driver control Blockly lesson. Don't mind the background picture. Okay, never mind that. So the first thing that you're gonna want to do is download VexCode v5. You can do that. Just search it up on your Chrome. You should just be able to search up VexCode v5. Install and download for whatever software you have. So once you got that set up, you can open up the program. And what you'll get, let me switch back language to English. What you'll get is a fresh brand new project. Just gonna be titled VexCode project, no motions and no motors added. You don't have to, no devices added. You don't have to worry about any of that right now. So the first thing we're gonna do, and what you should always do, is to title your project. I'll call this one driver control Blockly lesson. And it's always nice to add a date. Today is January 10th. Just so you can keep track of your progress as the season goes on. And it'll be way easier for you to be able to find your files that way. Click save, and you'll be able to save it onto whatever file you want. If you've got that set up, first you've got to add some devices. Now this is what's really connecting the code to your physical bot. It's gonna be very important to get this part right and accurate to your bot. First is a controller. This is going to be same for every single bot. Just add a controller, click done. There's your controller. And go to add devices. It's gonna depend on how the number of motors is gonna depend on how many motors you have on your drivetrain. I'm gonna code a 4-motor drivetrain right now, 2 on each side. The first thing you're gonna do is the port. I'll say this is port 1. And a front left motor. So forward and reverse is, if you look at your motors on the bot, you'll see arrows pointing a certain direction on the motor. It's gonna be in red and it's gonna be pretty visible. Okay, if you have one side that you want to be the front of your bot, you're gonna want the side, the forward of the motor to be facing that way. So if arrows pointing some other direction than that, or if the gears are geared up in the way that it's gonna end with your wheels spinning the other direction when you want to go forward, then you should set it to reverse. If it's pointing at the right direction, then set it normal. Gear cartridge, this is gonna be what cartridge you have in your motor. It's gonna be either red, green, or blue. Red's gonna be the slowest. We don't really use this for drivetrains. It's either gonna be blue or green, and you can check that on your bot. I'll say this one's normal with gray motors. I can click done and that'll save. And you can see the motion blocks popping up on the left side. Now we're just gonna do that 3 more times, or as many as you need to. This one, I'll name it back left. Normal also because it's on the same side of the drivetrain as the last one, and that's gonna mean the arrows pointing the same direction and the wheels are gonna be spinning forward when you want to go forward. And same gear cartridge. Now for the right side. This So it's gonna be front right. Since the other side was normal, this side's probably going to be reversed, but you should check with your bot because the left side might be reversed on your bot and the right side might be normal. So you should always double check that. Click done. Back right. Reverse this one also. Done. Now you have 4 motors and you're ready to code the driver control. So what a driver control does is it connects the joysticks or the controls on your controller with the motions of your motors. What we're gonna use for that is these motion codes. Spin, spin, spin. We just all want it to spin forward. We want that to be the default. And since we don't want front left motor spinning 4 times, we want 4 different motors spinning. We're gonna set these as, let's first add a when driver control. You'll see those under event. This is gonna run the code below it when it's in driver control. And we have these set up. So what this code is gonna do is it's just gonna spin the motors forward. We don't really have any control over how fast, what direction it's spinning. So we're gonna want to use sensing blocks to connect the controller axes. These numbers are the axes. There's the axis 1, 2, 3, 4. The position of those axes, you can just think of them as like graphs when you have x, y. It's gonna be 1, 2. And those positions correlate to the velocity. You can use this block to set the velocity to, let's say, 2. Axis 2. So now what this block is going to do, it's gonna set front left velocity to controller 2's position. So when you're pushing controller 2 all the way forward, then front left velocity is gonna be, say, 100%. And now we want to repeat that for all 4 of the motors. Okay. But here you might notice there's a problem. You can only go forwards and backwards. There's nothing else that you can do. And that's because we only have one axis controlling every single motor the same way. So if you think about what the motors are doing when the bot is turning, so what's it gonna do? When you're turning to the right, imagine turning to the right when you're walking. That means you're gonna notice that your left leg is moving more or taking wider steps than your right leg. That's gonna allow you to turn to the right. Same thing happens with the bot. So when you're turning to the right, so that'll mean here, say I'm trying to use axis 4 for my turning. I want, when I'm pushing the axis 4 all the way to the positive side here, I want the bot to turn right. So that'll mean that I want from the left side's velocity to be bigger than the right side's. How are we gonna incorporate that into our code? Operators. We can use these math blocks, so to speak, to add our axes 4 position to axis 2. Now this is gonna make it bigger than the right side's velocity, right? Now let's repeat that for this one also. But how about turning to the left? We also need to do the same thing for the right side. Right sides, we want the right side to be turning faster than the left side when we want to turn to the left. So that's gonna mean that when this side's all the way here, we want the right side to be bigger than left side. But that's gonna give you a negative position, right? It's gonna give you a, say, -100. So we can't add -100 and expect the position to be bigger than something here. So we can't do the same thing that we did here. We'd have to subtract it from controller 2 position, because subtracting a negative number makes it positive and therefore bigger than here. Since you're adding a negative number when you're trying to turn to the left, this side will be much smaller than this side. So let's pull up our operators again. And here we have our subtractors. Now we just add position 4. Copy that. Just plug it back in. Now we have two sides of our motors spinning two different velocities depending on the controller axis 4 position. So this won't interfere with our velocity when going forward or backwards, just straight, because controller 2 position, if controller's 2 position is say 100 and controller 4 position is 0, which means you aren't moving it at all, it's just all gonna be 100, right? Because 100 plus 0 and 100 minus 0 will equal the same thing. Now, can we just put this here and expect it to run? Well, not exactly, because if you read this code, it's only gonna go through this once because there's no loop or any statements that repeat the code here. But we want it to continuously go through this part of the code right here. Why? Because we want the controller's input to be constantly being calculated through the program. So what we're gonna use here is a forever loop. So if we just pop this thing into a forever loop, it's always gonna spin forward. It's gonna be spinning forward by default, but we'll be able to change the velocity using our controller inputs forever, as long as it is driver control. Now we've got our code set up. So if you've connected your brain and your radio, and you've plugged your radio into your laptop using your download cable, you'll be able to, these two icons should flash green. It should be bright green, and this download sign will also be green. Well, it won't be green, it'll be white and not faded anymore. And you can just click that and wait for it to download, and you'll be able to run your code. Hopefully this works out, and if you have any problems with your bot, you can always ask a coding mentor like me or any other members in other teams. Thank you, and have fun coding.